Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today we are going to taste and discover what's so special about raw champagne. I used to think that raw was rather silly name, especially in the era of Google search. When you type in raw champagne, there is no guarantee you will find information about raw, the champagne brand. You might just as easily find information on all sorts of rare champagnes. And now that it stands proudly as a separate brand from Piper Heidsieck, it might be even more confusing to some. But the truth is, this is beautiful Cuvée Prestige. Yet, despite the fact that it packs the same amount of excitement, complexity and quality as some of the other better-known Cuvée Prestige names, think of Krug and Dom Pérignon, it has somehow always remained in the background. As I was preparing for this video, I started to think, RAR is a story of separations, no? If we want to talk about RAR, we have to talk about Piper Heidsieck, and if we want to talk about Piper Heidsieck, we also have to talk about the Charles Heidsieck and Heidsieck monopole, as all three houses trace their roots back to 1785, when Florence Ludwig Heidsieck founded Heidsieck & Co. Piper Heidsieck only became a separate estate in 1834 when Christian Heidsieck created his own company. And for those of you who are looking for widows in the champagne history books, you will not have to look too far. Because the name Piper appeared only after Christian Heidsieck passed away and his wife, now widowed, married her brother-in-law, Henry Guillaume Piper, in 1938. Hence, Piper Heidsieck. Now, for a while, Charles Heidsieck and Piper Heidsieck were under different ownership. In 1988, Piper Heidsieck was acquired by Remy Cointreau Group, which brought both Heidsieck's back under one roof. And since 2011, both houses have been owned by Epi Group. Piper Heidsieck has always had a close relationship with cinema, and they are very proud of the fact that they might have been the very first product placement back in 1933 in a movie Sons of the Desert. Since then, it has all been about Hollywood lights, seduction, red lips, and that slightly bohemian, luxurious lifestyle. I will be honest with you, I have never been the greatest fan of bright red lipstick and Louboutin-inspired packaging of the house. But whenever I taste the champagne, I'm pleasantly surprised. It is more serious than it looks. That speaks volumes of chef de cave Régis Camus, who for a while was responsible for both Charles Heidsieck and Piper Heidsieck wines. The first vintage of RAR was 1976, and the name did do it a justice because up until 2002, only 6 vintages have been released. Since then, the releases have been more frequent, yet still quite rare. And when I visited the estate in 2021, they had only released 11 vintages of RAR. Today, I believe the number is 14. In 2018, RAR was introduced as a separate entity from Piper Heidsieck, much like Dom Pérignon is no longer a Cuvée Prestige of another house, but rather a remarkable champagne estate in its own right. Régis Camus stayed on with RAR until 2022, so 2006 vintage is also made by him. RAR has always been Chardonnay dominated, usually around 70% Chardonnay and 30% Pinot Noir. The 2006 vintage is no different, and if we can believe technical sheets, it is exactly that, 70-30. Much of its character is attributed to the fact that part of Chardonnay is sourced from Montagne de Reims, thus stylistically making it different from the examples of Côte du Blanc. Like most Cuvée Prestige of Grand Marques, this champagne as well has been aged on its lees for over 10 years. Grand Marques can afford that, both financially and in terms of cellar space. Interestingly, it also has a relatively high dosage, just over 9 grams per liter, a golden standard a while ago. Nowadays, the trend is towards lower dosage, including RAR champagne. But now, let's taste and see what's so special about RAR champagne. Okay guys, so how did you like my pronunciation of RAR? I can tell you a story while I smell and taste the wine, because of course I am an English speaking person. I understand my English, and I would want to think that it is pronounced rare, which is also kind of beautiful and plays this really lovely game with how rarely this wine has been released. But then I was in one of the presentations where the representative of the house was at the table and talking about champagne. And I remember it distinctly that for all the Latvian people that we were in the room, it was really interesting to see or hear that the house name was pronounced Rach or Rar. So I did my best to pronounce it in my greatest French language, but of course it still remains a beautiful play between the names and words, the rare champagne or Rar champagne. So let's taste it. Yeah, the first nose of this wine is classic champagne, quite expressive and rich and powerful, and can I say expensive champagne. You just feel these really intense notes of lees aging, of freshly baked bread, but that crispy crust of the bread, of maybe a bit brownish baguette or brioche. You know, it's not burnt, not at all, but you have, it's a bit golden. The skin, the crust is golden. Somewhere in the middle between these brioche and freshly baked bread aromas, we do feel bruised apple skin, yellow, golden apple. I do feel some of the stone fruits, you know, yellow plum and maybe ripe peaches or apricots, more like an apricot. So it does feel like a riper vintage, which it is difficult to talk about this vintage, you know, because it was relatively hot and dry vintage. And sometimes we consider that these hot and dry vintages can ripen their fruit earlier. And sometimes the acidity can drop quite early as well. But what happens in really, really hot and dry weather, which is stressful to the wine, it can shut down. And sometimes we can get unripe flavors in really hot and dry vintages, which can be confusing. I do not think that this is the case, at least judging by the nose here. It is quite open and rich. And this bottle was bought at the winery, so it has not traveled a lot. So only winery cellar and then my cellar. And I want to say that it is quite mature nose. Okay, I've been talking a lot. Let's taste it. I don't have a spittoon. Okay, so that first sip was really rich, and I want to say even sweet. It tasted sweet to my palate, but not sweet sticky. It was just so ripe, full of these apricots, these yellow plums, but they're just bursting with fruit. It's the end of the harvest. It is all just so rich and concentrated on the palate. The acidity came at the very end, just to swoop it and refresh it, you know, to refresh all the palate. But interestingly, on the palate, it did provide that structure. I would want to call this a really structured wine, a structured champagne. It might not sound so romantic when we talk about champagne, because you kind of want champagne to lift you a little bit, maybe put you on the cloud, you know, and just maybe 2 centimeters above the ground to elevate you. And here I do feel that this champagne brings you down by the table. It makes you want to talk about it or talk with it. Maybe in this case, because there is this textural profile, or maybe it is the the vintage as well. It could be the case here. But I want to describe this as a very textural champagne. It is still, can I say tactile? Is it okay to describe wine as a tactile wine, tactile champagne? And it still is really rich and charming and opulent in style. I don't like to describe my wines like food wines, but I do feel that maybe Roar is more of a wine or champagne that would really well go with dishes, with a dinner. So it's a champagne for dinner. There are champagnes that you can easily enjoy as an aperitif. They just get lost in your glass. They just evaporate in your glass. And then there are champagnes who require your attention. I think this is it. For example, Dom Perignon, I think, can go both ways. It can really easily evaporate in the glass and it can accompany your dinner. Here, it seems that this wine requires all your attention through all of the dinner. I think it makes sense that Roar is now a separate brand from Piper Heidsieck, because Heidsieck is this playful, easygoing, and easy to understand, rather fruitful and youthful champagne. And then this stylistically could fall out of the whole portfolio of the Piper Heidsieck. So now we have it as a separate entity, as a separate brand, and it does play the solo in the evening. So quite rich, opulent, and structured champagne. Beautiful acidity. I like how well the acidity has been integrated in this wine. It is definitely not something that you feel from the very sip. It is rather playing this supporting role on the finish, on the back palate, and the fruit, the richness, the structure, the bone is what is playing on the front. Bubbles are tiny, beautiful, but I was talking quite a lot, so maybe they did evaporate a little bit, but I do like they're more playful than aggressive. Sometimes in youth, certain champagnes can show rather aggressive bubbles, but these are just caressing your palate. They're absolutely beautiful. I will give this wine 93 points. I do think that this is a magnificent bottle, but I also want to say one thing. 2006 vintage, it was difficult, it was challenging vintage because of the weather, and not every estate or champagne house declared it. And I would want to say that this is at its peak. And of course it depends of the house style, of course, but I would want to note that if you do have 2006 Roar at home, it is in a perfect condition to open that bottle and celebrate your family, your friends, your day, your week, your month. It is in a perfect condition. I think aging it a bit more, we might lose some fruit, because already now we have of that, like that's really ripe, that bruised character playing with riper fruit profile. So what's so special about Roar champagne? I want to say that it absolutely deserves to be on the same shelf together with Dom Perignon and Cristal and Krug. It is just in a different style, and we want that. We want diversity. We don't want everything to be purity and everything to be zesty and lively. We also want structure. We also want bones. We also want flesh. And this is what this specific bottle, for me at least, is offering. I absolutely love it. I will have a beautiful dinner for myself later today, enjoying it with this amazing bottle. And you know what, girls? I have heard that sometimes in restaurants you kind of can take this off, or you can get like an extra of this tiara and put it. So it is another great accessory you can get from this bottle. Let me know in the comment section below, have you tasted Roar champagne? Did I pronounce it correctly? But please be respectful. French is not my native language. It is not my language. I have never studied it. And What do you think about it? Do you enjoy it? Do you like it? Or maybe it is still in your bucket list. And guys, there's one Cuvée Prestige that I am 100% sure is underrated, and that is Comtesse de Champagne by Taittinger. So make sure to watch that video next.